In 1976, in the Brazilian state of Minas Gerais, the remains of a woman were found. Her skeleton was dated to be 11,500 years old, making them the oldest human remains ever found in Brazil and South America. She was named Luzia in honor of the other skeleton, the oldest ever found, named Lucy, found in Tanzania. I think I mentioned it in the History of Tanzania video, but I don't remember. Her skeleton's finding marks the beginning of the history of the land we call Brasilia. Around 8,500 BCE, the cave paintings in Sierra de Capoeira National Park were made. These cave paintings show animals we would never associate with South America today, including giraffes, hippos, elephants, tigers, and extinct ones include saber-toothed cats and cave bears. For our next historical event, let's look at this map of South America. Now let's zoom into the mouth of the Amazon, shown where the arrow is pointing. That shows the island called Marahon. This island is known for its culture called the Marahon Culture. Marahon was an island. It's still an island, and this island is unique because it's the world's largest fluvial island. What does this mean? A fluvial island is an island created by a river. So if you have a peninsula like Florida and it suddenly got cut off by a river, that would make it a fluvial island. Why is this random culture so important? Well, it has to do with the things that were found here in archaeological digs in the 60s, 70s, and 80s. These people had elaborate burial traditions, which included burial masks, and, in my opinion, I think these people invented cremation because so many urns were found here. For anyone who plays or is a fan of Legend of Zelda, I'm not particularly interested in it, but in case you are, if you know the game The Mask of Majora, the mask itself was inspired by the burial masks which were found here. So you can thank this random civilization for it. I'm sorry to everyone watching this, but there are no records of anything happening after the Marahon culture disappeared until the 1500s, which is when the Portuguese discovered Brazil. I'm going to have to skip to the 1500s. This is really annoying and frustrating. I dug for hours upon hours to try and find anything I could put into here before this, but I couldn't, other than some weird geoglyphs that really don't matter. So I'm sorry everyone, but I'm going to have to skip to the European discovery of Brazil. Do you wonder who that man is above? On April 22nd, 1500, Pedro Alvares Cabral, an explorer from Portugal, landed in the modern Brazilian state of Bahia. While here, he claimed the land that would later become Brazil for Portugal and split it up into these hideous strips. In 1604, the pesky Dutch sacked and later captured what was then Brazil's capital, Salvador. As I often say, this was not to last. From 1678 to 1694, a slave named only by Zumba escaped from his captors and inspired thousands of slaves to rebel against the Portugal. Zumba resisted the Portuguese and was an idol for those enslaved in Portuguese Brazil, but unfortunately, on February 6, 1694, he was found and gruesomely decapitated by the Portuguese. Slavery would continue in Brazil for another 150 years. In 1695, slave owners known as banheiras in the mountains of the state of Minas Gerais discovered gold, starting the Brazilian gold rush. By 1696, in its peak year, 900,000 people were mining for gold, 500,000 of which were enslaved people given no choice but to mine for their owners. That's 3 times more people mining than in the peak of the Californian gold rush, which was about 300,000. By the end of the Brazilian gold rush in 1697, 900 tons of gold were sent back to Portugal. People later today started mining in the Amazon, which is now threatening it, along with deforestation and other things. In 1710, a French fleet sailed into the Bay of Rio de Janeiro. That's right, it's not Rio de Janeiro, Americans and anyone who pronounces that. It's Rio de Janeiro. This is Portuguese land, not Spanish. Anyways, the French who sailed into the Bay of Rio de Janeiro intended on capturing it. This led to the Battle of Rio de Janeiro. It was a total disaster for the French and was a, I guess, Portuguese victory since the French weren't able to take it over. Around 1,000 people died. In 1796, the Portuguese and Spanish teamed up to fight against the rebellious native Guarani people who live in what's now Paraguay, southwestern Brazil, and northern Argentina. This led to the Guarani War, which was a decisive Spanish and Portuguese victory. The Guarani people still exist today and are an autonomous people of Paraguay. In 1798, back in the aforementioned state of Bahia, there was a massive slave revolt. The slaves were trying to form a new country called Bahia. They were trying to use the flag above, but the Portuguese were not having it. It was brutally suppressed, and around 500 slaves were killed. On this day, September 7th, in 1822, tired of its colonial master, Brazil decided to declare independence from Portugal, leading to the Brazilian Revolution. By its end in 1829, 6,000 people had died just from Brazil's side. Brazil's revolution was successful, leading to the creation of the Brazilian Empire, which was free from rule of Portugal. After fighting a revolution, what do you think Brazil needs? A state in the extreme south of Brazil called Rio Grande do Sul decided they needed a civil war. From 1835 to 1845, the extremely white state of Rio Grande do Sul wanted to form their own country, which would be a weird mix of South American and German culture, since a lot of the people here still, and to this day, speak their native tongues, including German, English, French, Italian, and others. This led to the Ragamuffin War, which was suppressed by the Brazilians and was a Brazilian victory. Today, Rio Grande do Sul is a state of Brazil and still has their culture today. None of the things I've mentioned so far compare to this in terms of how bloody they were. From 1895 to 1898, Brazil and its relatively unknown city of Canutos fought in the War of Canutos. This conflict was fought over Brazil's lack of aid for the area's crazy bad poverty. It was crazily bloody and was suppressed by Brazil. The population of the town before the war was about 30,000, and after is about 100, which means that almost every person in the town was killed individually by the Brazilians. This means women and children were not spared. This effectively made the War of Canutos the bloodiest thing in Brazilian history. In 1964, fear of communism swept the Western world, and especially Brazil, leading to the people thinking that their mid-left president, João Goulart, was actually a communist. This led to the coup of 1964, which, backed by the U.S., led to João Goulart's deposition. Those who opposed his deposition were often targeted by the police, which led to the photo above, which you can say is the most iconic photograph in Brazilian history. And today's last controversy is the 2016 Summer Rio Olympics. As you know, Rio de Janeiro hosted the Summer Olympics in 2016. In my opinion, it's the most famous Summer Olympics. But why was this so controversial? It has to do with Rio's now infamous slums, getting walls built around them by the city so people couldn't see what conditions were like for these people. Other than that, I have to end this somewhere, and I can't come up with anything else to put in here, so yeah. And with that, that is my history of Brazil. Thank you so much for watching. New Zealand is coming up next as per request. Thank you for watching.